Alright, welcome to today's tutorial where we will be making a countryside image of I don't know exactly what these are called, but this is a tractor, some part of a tractor. Not a trolley, but it's something, I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the harvesting side of things with the tractor. And here we have some metal thing that also I think is a plow or something that has to do with the tractor as well. And this is early spring, so the theme for this is going to be basically bushes and shrubs in a quite a similar limited palette type of painting. So I will use 3 colors to paint this, do this painting with. I'm going to be using cobalt blue, yellow ochre, and alizarin crimson. And with these colors, I should be able to make this picture pretty, hopefully. And hopefully the final result will be a nice contrast between the light of the grass here, the very dry grass and this is the dry grass from the last year, and the shadow and the interesting colors and shadows of this trolley. And hopefully get a nice contrast here where the focal point is, but also be able to do the tree lines in a good way. So the brushes I will be using today are 3. I don't use these brushes other than this thin brush. This is a squirrel brush, I believe. It's a small brush I rarely use, and a goat hair brush that I know these are nice brushes, but I rarely use them, so this will be a bit new for me because I usually don't use these brushes. But yeah, they are very nice. But anyway, let's get to work. So what I'm gonna start doing is I'm just gonna use cobalt blue to begin with, to making the sky. So I'm just gonna make this nice blue sky, and there are no clouds in this particular painting, so if there's something that reminiscence of a cloud, that's fine, but I'm not going to use or add in any clouds, not intentionally at least. Usually there will be a sort of there will be some areas in the sky usually that can be reminiscing of clouds. So that's perhaps what will happen, and I will go down a bit lighter here when it's reaching the horizon line. So it becomes quite a pale sky here. So I stop here around the horizon line there. Just paint through the trees here. Then what I usually do is I try to soften up the edge where it reaches down in the horizon. Soften it up a little. It's fine to have some blue going here in the middle ground, because it also gives a bit of feeling of distance. But don't want to have too much blue where it's going to be closer in the picture. So I can just dry this off with a paper, tissue. I want to let this dry, and what I usually, or what I have begin to do much more is to paint the focal area first. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to paint the focal area while this is drying, and then I'm going to start making the foreground, or when this is dry, either I will start with focal point, and then I will do either the background and work my way from back forward, or I will do the foreground and work my way backwards. I haven't made up my mind exactly for this particular painting, but what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to start painting this I'm just going to call it a trolley because I'm not sure exactly what it's called. So I'm going to mix some yellow ochre, Ellison crimson, and I'm also going to add in some of that cobalt blue, a bit more pure cobalt blue. That's a little bit much water. I'm noticing that this goat brush holds a lot of water, which is a good thing, but I wasn't expecting that exactly, but that's fine. Just gonna add more pigment to it. So I want quite a strong red color. So I'm just gonna start from the back here. Once this dries up, it will dry paler. I'm just going to squint my eyes as well and see the big shape of this trolley here. So it has a lot of like older rust and dirt on it. Add more cobalt blue to give this the darker areas here of the darker underlying areas of this trolley. I don't worry about the shadows so much for now, but more concerned with the first wash, basically the base color of the metal itself. Make sure to keep it, basically keep the strokes direct. Don't go over back and forth on the subject. Under here there's a lot of shadow, so I can't exactly see the individual parts down here. So it is lit from this side. So the light is coming from this way, or almost from up above. It doesn't cast this area in shadow, but it's coming almost from directly above. So I'm just going to keep going on this, what do we call this, metal framing here. Just gonna make this metal frame here. Add some, then we go forward here. I have no idea what these things are called, so I can't exactly explain the individual parts of what I'm painting. But I can see that it's metal. Want to add some cobalt blue as well to give some variation and some, so it doesn't look too flat. Just want to add these three mixtures. Try to keep it fairly light so we don't go too dark on the pigments. If there's some white sparkles that are left behind, that's perfectly fine for me, because you know that's the highlights, or the gives it a bit of sparkle there as well. So for the tire here, I'm going to use cobalt blue and mix in a bit of a grayer color, grayish color. Or is it quite a warm gray color, I guess you could say. And then you have some grass here that I want to try to avoid as much as possible. I want to try to blend this in if possible, so it kind of just blends into the shadow layer which I'm going to put in. I can also add some bit more darker mixture into here to give it some roundness. Give it some darkness here. We have some also, you can see that it's a bit, has this the wheel, inside of the wheel here as well. You can go in, add some smaller. Now this is starting to dry, so I don't want to put in any paint here. I'm just going to switch. This holds a bit too much water, so I'm just going to switch. Try to lift off some of the color here. Give some of that nice roundness in the tire. Try to add some more pure pigment here as well. Get even darker to define the shape even more. Also add some here. Now here's, I'm noticing with this, these pigments are that it's hard to get a very dark color. If I were used for, let's say, ultramarine blue, I could have gotten a very, very dark, almost black color. You can get a darker color with these pigments as well, but it's a bit harder, I noticed. think that's pretty good. So I'm just going to let this dry a little. Maybe also lift off a little bit of color here to kind of make the edge of the grass there will be here a bit blurred so it doesn't become too harsh. I will let this dry a bit and then I'll go over more of these details of this trolley. So this is dried up a little bit. I'm just going to continue doing these wooden boards. Use yellow ochre. Try to mix sort of a greenish brown, dark brown color. Hopefully with some variation here. Try to mix in some other colors as well. Mix in all the different, these three colors. Just add some cobalt blue as well. So you get a sort of variation of it. You can actually just pull directly from the palette. I mean, it doesn't have to resemble exactly like how it looks in real life, obviously, because this is a painting and I'm trying to represent an emotion, basically, or a mood, rather, than what it looks like in real life. Once this is dried a little bit, I can also add some details in by scratching in some details here. You can use a knife. Just to give it some resemblance of these wooden planks here. Also gives it some texture there. So we don't have a layer, shadow layer yet here, which I will put in a little while. First I'm going to approach this plowing metal pieces of scrap metal here. So I'm just going to do a very quick and easy little brush strokes here, so that will have to resemble this type of metal. Has some, interesting colors and shapes there. Also give that some shadow later on. So I'm just going to let this dry now for a couple of minutes. So now everything is dry. I'm going to go on the background and work my way forward Then I'm gonna let this background, the middle ground, dry a little bit. Then I'm gonna do the foreground. And I think the last thing will be the shadow layers. So for my background, I don't want it to be in focus. I just want it to be there, sort of. And we have some tree lines here on top of a hill. So I'm just gonna mix up the palette I have here. A bit more cobalt blue, yellow ochre mainly, to give it some quite a light, almost like a grayish color, maybe a bit warmer color. This is basically just the tree line here that will have to be resembling a tree line. Maybe a bit more blue there to give it some distance. I also like to kind of soften this up a little bit. Don't get too harsh. And there's a tree line here, so it stands on top of a mountain, but that's really not important to make any distinctions here. We're basically just making a shape in the background, and it's moving forward. And we're moving forward, and we're making every layer, so to speak, warmer and warmer. So I'm adding more Ellison Crimson into the mix. Making it a bit darker as well. I want to have these trees that are sticking up as well. And use the brush and remove some pigment and paint from them. Have some trees sticking up here. I'm going to remove some water and just try to make something that resembles branches here. And this is going to have to dry a bit more. I can go in and I can add a bit more trees here later. I need the background to dry a bit more. I'm going to try to move to all the way to almost the foreground here, where the other type of shrubs will be. So there's another type of shrubbery here. It's going to move over here, kind of soften this up a little bit as well. This is also part of the foreground, so I don't want to put too much harsh lines here. Gonna have to let these kind of dry out a bit. Just gonna soften these even more. So we get a nice kind of gradient where it just blends together. You don't want it too harsh lines. So I'm just gonna make this dry a little bit more. So this is dried up a little. I will focus on this middle ground first and foremost. Make it even darker. So I'm gonna add some yellow ochre. Add Ellison Crimson here. I want to give it sort of the distinction between this background. So what I need to do is I need to have more pigment. This will have to be sort of like the resemblance of trees, the trees that I made here. I should have waited with these trees. Actually, I should have waited earlier on. Have some trees here that goes up. Don't have too much texture here, but still want to show that there is a distinction where the foreground is and where the background is. Just use a semi-dry brush to give these type of branches sticking out. You can still see through it, so you can still see the background and the sky as well. Just add a bit more variation here. You can have some more cobalt blue and have some different trees here. We have some big tree here in the background as well. I'll try to get that in as well. Just very, very carefully make some branches here. Goes back in the background. Grab some paint and just try to, once again, do some very gentle dry brushing there. We move all the way over here, make it a bit warmer once again. The pigment strength and the hue strength. So we use different hues and get a nice mix and variation of hues. I don't want to use too much dry brush though, because dry brush can very easily make you focus too much on the dry brushed area, and it gives it a bit too much texture. So you have to be careful to do it, not do too much dry brushing. But here's important to do a bit more. I'll need more strength in pigment and in hue here to give it some depth, especially. So I can just add some more darker pigments here. This would kind of resemble things that are in shadow here. This way I get some nice depth to it. So now I'm using these type of, I guess you could say, layer methods to build up my picture. And here there will be a lot of kind of taller grass. So I'm just adding that in the shadow here where the very tall grass will be. Then some shadows here as well. Then we have these, what do you call these shrubs? These are basically these, what do you call these fruits? Berries, not blueberries, raspberries maybe. Some type of shrub here that are all, and I want to have a distinct pattern for them so that you can see that's actually a type of shrub. So I'm just going to use, because these are mainly like a red type of shrub, so I'm going to use a bit more, I guess you could say, texture I have basically I want to have a stronger pigment here to attach it, so a bit more vivid hue to make the eyes basically stay in this area. So these are going all over here, then a bit over here. And I can add in some cobalt blue to give it some volume and texture and some shadow basically. But now I have kind of separated these shrubs from the background by its hue and by giving it a bit more. You see these white sparkles here as well. Make a nice line here, so kind of fades into the grass, where I'm going to be putting in the grass in a second. These are, I'm just going to give it also some darker lines here later, also to give that type of to show it these spiky vines as well. So now I'm going to go for the grass. I'm going to use yellow ochre. Try to keep it quite pure. A bit of darkness to the corners. That's what I usually do to kind of distract to not have you look so much into the corners. It's good to have a bit of darkness there. But other than that, it's basically a lot of just the same, very sunlit pigment, sunlit yellow ochre. This goes all over the place. So when you leave a lot of whites here, you get a very strong sense of light, a very strong sense of warmth, and that's why I don't really worry where I put my brush basically, because your eyes will always go where the contrast is. So where the light meets, these white paper meets some contrast, so you can add some darker contrast every here and there as well, kind of make it blend a bit. But other than that, I want to keep it quite a lot of yellow ochre here, give it this very, very bright and sense of being hidden in the light, and that gets a nice separation between the foreground and the background as well. Add some here and behind the truck. So it gives us a nice texture. Then I just mix in some random darkness into this as well. Kind of like keep it together and bind it together, basically. Have some areas here where it's a bit more in shadow. Have some more shadow here where it's like the shrubs here in the background. Give it some different direction as well. Life is not just uniform, just straight up and down. It's, the grass here will go in different directions and so on. But as I said, I intentionally put a lot more light and bright pigment here, where I have the focal point basically, to have your eyes drawn here. That's intentional. And that's important, I feel, when I paint, is to become a lot more intentional with where you're putting the strokes. Okay, I think that's good. Now I will let this dry and go in for the shadow layers in the end. And by the way, before I let this all dry up, I forgot to mention that I want to add some more texture, and we'll be using my knife to just put in some grass straws. Just vary the angles and direction of the lines as well. So that's pretty good. Now I will let this dry. So I'm going to do the shadow layer of this tractor part here. I'm going to mix up quite a dark, strong pigment of cobalt blue, yellow ochre. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get a extremely dark pigment. It would probably be more of a brownish, dark brown color. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to start painting in this shadow underneath. And this is basically just a large shadow here, because it's such a strong sunlight. It's very forgiving in that sense, and you can get these very nice contrasts between the light and the shadows. There's a lot of different parts here. Don't want to add too much details. Basically, I want to add a bit more cobalt blue. Kind of just go over the whole area here. Can just show that nice, very dark. Now what I should have done, I should have used ultramarine blue, but I think this works pretty well anyhow. You can still get a very dark color with this. Basically, I try to squint my eyes a bit more and kind of see where there would be these stronger shadows. And I'm not following anything precisely. I'm just squinting my eyes a bit and trying to see approximately where there could be a light from your reference image. Here, oops, it's a bit thick. I should probably switch brush now. Yeah, I think I'm going to switch brush to my thinnest brush. I'm going to add a bit more thinner, but also very sharp shadows here. With this a strong shadow, cast shadows here, give it some nice detail without doing too much. I don't want to be making sort of like a realism type of painting. I want to have it a bit more suggestive and loose, impressionistic. So I'm going to have a bit more texture here to kind of show the grass coming here. Then you can just kind of soften this edge a bit. Let's see. This is a strong cast shadow here. Have some here. Some between these wooden boards here on the I think that's enough. There's a pretty strong shadow here underneath this. I don't know what it is. Almost looks like a convertible roof, but it's not a convertible, that's for sure. Adding some details over here and there. Let's see, should I do maybe some tiny shadows on the tracks? What do you call it? Give it some I think that's pretty good. Maybe I should soften this up a little bit. It's a bit red at the moment. I would like to have it a bit more bit more bluish, basically. This tire here, I would like to have it a bit more gray blue color. I think that will do it. That will have to do. Just make it very strong shadow underneath this whole machine here. Then I'm going to add some darker yellow ochre here for areas where it's more darker grass. It doesn't necessarily connect so much with but it still connects with this machine, but I don't want the eyes necessarily to go too much into this area, but I still need to kind of define and make it a bit darker here, so your eyes are drawn here. So your eyes kind of have to be be led into this area here. So just adding a bit more random darker paths of grass and gravel and whatnot here. Some darker patches of grass here, maybe darken that to soften it up a bit darker. Darken this corner here as well, so you get this kind of vignetting effect, so your eyes are drawn automatically inwards. You have to be careful to not do too many of these brush strokes, because I want to have sort of like a simplicity and loose impressionistic style. I want to have some more shadows to this rusty piece of metal here as well, but once again, I don't want to put too much focus here, so I'm going to be a bit careful with just try to add just enough shadows so that you see that it is something man-made, basically. So it's not too random, but you don't really stop and look for too long. Needs a bit more shadow and darkness here. so it kind of looks like it's sitting on the ground there. It also connects by having a bit more when it has the right contrast and value, it connects to this object basically, and it is connected in some way. You can also try to connect it by basically leading your eye and making a connection in the value contrast between these two objects. But as I said, I have to be very careful with not putting too much darkness here. So your eyes aren't drawn to this object in particular. That's the challenge. It's to find this middle ground of not doing too little and not doing too much. I'm also going to use give it some darker, to kind of give these tree vines, or whatever you want to call it, some texture as well. So you can kind of tell that there's this type of vines going around back here. Once again, not putting too much emphasis or giving it too much visual power, basically. Everything has to have basically in hierarchy. Maybe I should darken this a bit more. Darken this a bit more. There's some bigger shadow way over here. Maybe some more. I don't want to put too much brush strokes there as well. I want to keep it quite simple, quite impressionistic. Maybe we can add some more texture. I feel as if I need a bit more texture to these shrubs, basically. I still feel like they are a bit too soft, basically. Don't really know what it is. Get some shadows as well. Don't have too many whites areas here as well. I don't want the eyes to go here. That's better. So I'm just having a second check now to see if there's anything clearly that I'm missing. Can add some more grass straws here. So I think I'm pretty much done. This was a bit. I'm just having a second look here and seeing if there's anything that I want to improve. But I think that will be it. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to get across. I think it's very clear what this could be, and it's a loose impressionistic painting with the elements. I feel like I got in the different placements of objects and things where I want them to be. You can sort of sense what type of weather it is, what type of lighting, what type of feeling it is throughout the day. And the mission for me was to get this contrast between the light and the dry grass, and have the contrast with this old machine here. It is challenging in one way, but it's also very simple in another way. And it's to get that type of dimension and get the depth, and also get a texture at the same time. It can be quite challenging, and I think it turned out quite okay actually. If you like this video, I hope you like and subscribe, and you can also comment if you want to see another type of video or another type of setting. So yeah, I think I will leave it there for today, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.